Good morning, everybody. It's BDF44. So this morning I woke up thinking about the OKC Thunder point guard situation. I drafted a bunch of my fantasy basketball teams a bit early, so it has me taking a look at things that I probably wouldn't care to look at otherwise. And one thing that I find intriguing right now is just what's going on in OKC. Sorry about that. In terms of their roster with the point guard spot. So obviously they made a trade. Everybody knows about this. Chris Paul was traded to the Thunder for Russell Westbrook, so we know what's going on with that. I've already said what I think of the Thunder. Check another video out for that one. About the Rockets, but the Thunder in regards to their point guard spot. So, if things line up the way I believe they will, Chris Paul's not going to play a whole lot this season. He's not. It's one of two things I think are going to happen. Either he's going to take on a huge load trying to lead a bad team, and he's going to probably find himself missing games because of it, injuries, stuff like that. Or I believe there's going to be situations where they have a bunch of young players, and their coaching staff is going to look at Chris Paul and say, you're not part of our future. So around All-Star break, if they're not completely overachieving, hunting for a playoff spot, I see them shutting Chris Paul down. Not for his betterment in any way, just because they have other young players at that spot, Dennis Schroeder, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who are going to need that basketball experience. The team would be best if those guys are starting at the 1 and 2 spots, with Ferguson at the 3, and I just don't think that because they are not really playing for a playoff spot, or because they have high hopes, their only sole mission right now is developing those 3 players, in my opinion. I don't know what happens with Steven Adams. I like Hamidou Diallo. That's a young swingman that they have as well. I think he plays the 4. He's another player I think they're going to slide in. Obviously, Danilo Gallinari is going to have the green light at all times. He's an intriguing player, too. I was thinking about him because I look at his situation and I say last year was the first year where he has been considered not only really, really helpful, but also helpful and a contributor. It's usually one or the other with Danilo Gallinari. Most of the time, after he left New York, after he was traded from New York, he found himself just injured, missing a lot of games, things like that. But when he did find himself healthy, he was very, very helpful, particularly from this perimeter. He's a really, really, really gifted shooter and scorer in general. So I think, as I always say about players who have injuries, it usually takes about a year or 2 for them to get reestablished in terms of their strength, in terms of their conditioning, overcoming it mentally, all of that stuff. I think Danilo Gallinari is about 2 years removed from a real big injury. He's had several, but I think we're in a space where he's coming off a really good year with the Clippers. The team made the playoffs. He was an intricate part of what they did. And now he's just looking to carry that momentum into another situation. Unfortunately, it's not a playoff situation, but he didn't expect the Clippers to be a playoff situation last year either, and he really contributed. So he's a guy I'm optimistic about that could be comeback player of the year or in that conversation because of the circumstances that he's found himself in. He's on a team that isn't so good, but he's going to be one of the leaders of that team. And early on, I think they're going to be leaning on his offense quite a bit to provide them some scoring and some leadership on the offensive end. So I expect him to have a good season. I expect this to be one of his better seasons in his career. Terrence Ferguson is a player I've been super excited about since he was drafted. I think he was a mid-round guy about 4 years ago. Really, really young, really, really skinny when he came into the league, but he had pop. Dude could do a whole lot of jumping, a lot of athleticism, a whole lot of that. And he's been working on his mid-range game and his all-around offensive game for a couple years now, having played behind players such as Paul George, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Dennis Schroeder, obviously Victor Oladipo. He's played with guys that can help him along the way on both sides of the floor. I remember a game last year or the year before that. I don't remember what year it was, but he came to Staples Center and he popped. He showed us a glimpse of what he's going to be. So us Laker fans, if you remember that, then you already know what time it is with Terrence Ferguson in terms of his upside and what he's capable of doing when he puts it all together. We know he went off on us. Dunking threes, all that. He looked like his future self, what I believe he's going to be. So that's somebody I think has a chance to be a breakout player as well. The opportunities are just there. I mean, OKC's, for as long as we've known them, have been a two-star show. No blank canvas, not even from day one. It was Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook's squad with James Harden, and that was it. It was always somebody drawing attention away from other players. It was always someone drawing time away from other guys' development, and that's what it's been up until this very season. Now we're looking at OKC as a blank canvas. Anybody can take over. Anybody can break out. A guy can come out from the G League and have a big role on a team like this. This is, all things considered, a very bad team. But a very bad team in the mind of someone like myself is just an opportunity to develop players that are already on the roster. And that's how I'm looking at this thing. And that's how OKC should be looking at this thing. That's why Chris Paul probably is not going to get a whole lot out of that team this season. I really see them shutting him down. You can't trade him. The contract's too large. So he's going to play, start the season. We know what kind of player he is in terms of his injury history. That's kind of a bet, unfortunately. Knock on wood, hopefully it doesn't happen, but it's a bet. If you want to make that bet, it's not a bad one. So that's there. And then if he makes it through the season, you just understand that this is not a very good team. Even if they were in the Eastern Conference, I wouldn't have them in the playoffs picture. Like, there's just nothing on paper that shows me they're going to be a playoff team. So in the Western Conference, I mean, we're not looking at them in terms of total wins at all. It does not matter what they do, total win-wise. I think it's just important that guys like Ferguson, Shea, Dennis Schroeder, Gallinari, they just continue to find ways of gelling and getting better and developing their young players. Hamidou Diallo, that's what it's about, just developing the young guys. I do think, and I've said this off the camera just to myself, I do think that Dennis Schroeder's in a Jason Terry kind of lane because he spent time in Atlanta just like Jason Terry. In my mind, Jason Terry was a star, damn near a superstar with the Atlanta Hawks. I remember him dropping 50 points in a game or two. Like, he was capable. And once he left there, he was just a role player on a good team. He won He won a championship with Dallas, and he was able to really make his impact felt throughout the league, but he was never what he was to Atlanta. And I think Dennis Schroeder's in that same boat. It's like almost parallel. Went off in Atlanta, showed what he can do, developed himself as a starter in Atlanta, and now that he's on OKC or outside of Atlanta, it's like, okay, well, we're just going to throw him into a role. Nah, he's not a starting point guard because he was doing all this damage on a bad team. Let's just put him in a starting role. I think he's better than that. I think he provides more upside than people are giving him credit for at this point. I think he should be starting in this league. If he's not starting in this league, he's a sixth man of the year candidate with upwards of 28 to 30 minutes a game. He can help you in the assist category. He can help you in defensive categories. He can help you shooting the ball. He can help you slashing. He's a good player. He's a good player that's underrated, in my opinion, undervalued in the league right now. And with the logjam at point guard, I just wonder if that's going to get any better for him. He'll be able to carve out his little 15 points and things like that. But being able to really put his head down and turn into the next Rondo like he was projected to be when he was drafted, I just don't know if he has those opportunities right now, even though OKC is a depleted roster. Unfortunately, they're not depleted in young point guards and point guards in general with Chris Paul. So that's a little bit of a headache. I would like to see him in a better situation very, very soon. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, I mentioned in the videos before, a few videos before when he was still a Clipper. So much upside. I think the kid's going to be phenomenal on both sides of the ball. I don't know what he can do in terms of setting you up. It's not that he can't do it. I just don't know. I truly don't know. I know him to be a defensive player with offensive capability. He could score here and there. He could slash, stuff like that. He doesn't really have a jump shot from my understanding yet, but I think that he can put that together. That'll come. But he makes his money on the defensive end, passing lanes, being an on-ball defender, spotting you up, looking you dead in the face and telling you ain't scoring on him. That's the kind of player I see him developing into, and offensively I will learn what he will be, what he's about, because I just don't know. But yeah, man, OKC, they're a bad team. I don't, like I said, it's not about the wins this year. If they get upwards of 35 wins, obviously they should be shooting for that. 40 wins, if they could shoot for that, that would be a hell of a goal. But it doesn't matter if they win 28 games or whatever. Just find and establish what your starting and your units are going to be. Establish some belief in somebody on the roster, and continue to build. That's it. Also, of course, without saying, find a way to get rid of Chris Paul's contract. I think that is the whole entire story for that team. Now that they've put themselves in a position to have a contract that no one will ever want, they got to find a way to remedy themselves of that thing. And if they don't, they're limiting their ability to build. They're limiting their ability to build. They have assets they cannot use. A part of their cap is just stuck. So yeah, that hurts the rebuilding aspect of it. Like when I say blank canvas, you know what I mean? I could look at some of the other teams around this league and say they have better blank canvases, even though they have even less talent, because they don't have such a horrible contract to try to deal with. So, and looking at OKC, that is their first and foremost mission. Get him out of there. Get Chris Paul in Miami or something. And Steven Adams, same thing. I like Steven Adams. I think he's in the prime of his career. I think he could really help a good team. He's a starting center. I'd love to have him. Now that we've lost Boogie Cousins, it would be great to bring Steven Adams in as a Laker fan. A little more expensive than what we can afford, and I get that. But just in general, if I'm thinking about players I want, yeah, I'd love to bring in a Steven Adams. But that's the type of player that he is. He's the type of guy where if you have a really good team, you wish he was on it. And I just feel like OKC should take advantage of that notion. You do have a bad situation. You do have a cap space situation. You have made some trades and some things that have been questionable. And now you just got this, this big, huge contract at the center position for a guy who doesn't do anything to help a team that's no good. Steven Adams is a guy that's supposed to be helping teams that are very good. You want him on the Celtics. You want him on the Lakers. You want him on the Clippers. You want him. Those are the places you want him, not where he is. So I think depending on what his contract looks like, and I know he signed a very, very hefty contract, it might be reasonable for teams to take a look at trying to acquire him if they can afford to do so. Because he's doing nothing in OKC, and OKC is going nowhere very, very fast. So even though there's no real logjam for his position, so he's still going to get his minutes, he's still going to be able to put up his production. This might be his career year for him. And if they were to overachieve, I think it would be due to a great deal of his stability. But overall, overachieving for a team like this still leaves them outside of the playoff picture, and firmly outside of the playoff picture. So, yeah, we're looking at a team been talking about for 12 minutes that's probably going to have the first pick in the draft next year. I'm not confused about that. But I did want to just come on here and just kind of share the conversation I've been having with myself about this team. And, yeah. Sam Presti, you got some things on your plate to figure out. I still think that Russell Westbrook trade was a little weird, but when Paul George ask out, I guess you got to just do what you got to do. But bringing in a even older player, an even less effective player than the player that you left, that you gave away, that doesn't make any sense to me in any way. And having a bunch of picks, look, I understand they want to do the Boston thing. Before I go, OKC, and I've said this before in a video, they are the new vault of the league. They have all the picks in the world over the next several years because of the trades that they've made. So let's not leave that out of it. If they want to get rid of a Chris Paul, they'd have to attach some picks to it. If they want to get rid of Steven Adams, they will be forced to attach some picks, and they have them to do it. So just give that a little bit of thought as well. Anyway, enough OKC. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for watching the video, and I'm out. Peace. BDF.